Hello and welcome back to Media Beat. I'm Chris Aarons, editorial director of Mediabistro.com. We're here once again with Dylan Ratigan, and in this segment we want to talk, Dylan, about the partnership that you have with Nucor, the big steel company called Steel on Wheels. It's a TV and web initiative. What are you trying to accomplish with this?
We're trying to start a jobs movement in this country. We were talking in our last conversation about all these trillion-dollar problems, and one of the biggest byproducts of when you don't have money coming into your country, but you have money coming out of your country, is you don't create a lot of jobs. Right? In order to get jobs, you need to have investment in your country, investment in solving problems, and as you create that investment, you're able to create jobs.
Interestingly, it seems like the initiative, you probably are MSNBC creating jobs. You're taking the show on the road around the country.
Most certainly, yes.
But with Nucor giving you guys money, it probably wouldn't be possible. So what happens if there's a big news of the day story about Nucor? How do you?
And we would cover it. I mean, we would cover whatever, if there was some corporate scandal, we would cover that. For me, it was worth risking the possibility of, let's say Nucor comes out with some terrible news, we would cover that. But I look at it where this is a values partnership around trying to solve a $1 trillion problem in this country, using my communication assets and NBC's production assets to highlight and educate people to the trade problem, while at the same time highlighting people that are doing things well. Mm-hmm. And in the modern world, that takes partnerships to get done. And so this is the one that seemed like it made the most sense, because it wasn't just money for a TV show, it was shared values around a cause. I believe in fair trade. Nucor believes in fair trade. That's a transparent thing. I would almost rather have, I think the future's kind of back to the future, so I'd rather have the 1950s model where the host says, this is Ivory soap and I wash with it, and I think it's good soap, and you take the risk, right, than to act like I'm some sort of purely independent, unaligned journalist, even, and I've got this sort of where meanwhile they're like, the advertisers are calling, you got to shut your mouth. Yeah. I would much rather say, listen, I believe in fair trade. I believe in engaging China in a way that gets fairness back and allows us access to their markets and invites investment in our country. And Nucor believes the same thing. So
we're not going to see the Dylan Ratigan camel caravan of news, I imagine.
Well, probably not. Yeah. I mean, for me, the ones that are most aligned, I think, our best allies with our messaging goes to the domestic manufacturers, obviously steel companies.
And it gives them potentially access to these emerging
100%.
markets.
And it gives them the opportunity to create more jobs in America.
Right. So would your brand of talk, do you think, work in primetime? Would you like to be in MSNBC's primetime?
Yes, I think that it would, and I would love to be in MSNBC's primetime.
What about radio?
Radio is something I'm anxious to do. The truth is we've had a couple of different radio conversations that are still going right now, and the barrier has been when do we find the time? And obviously other people that do what I do are able to pull that off, so it's just a matter of us figuring out the scheduling. The one thing that I'll say about primetime, and I would obviously love to move to a slot like that, I believe that because of the internet, because of what the media is, that where your time slot is much less relevant than it was 2 or 3 years ago, and I think it'll be even less relevant 2 or 3 years from now. Mm-hmm. That I think that the clarity of your narrative and your ability to create the circle of life with your web assets, with your publishing, and we're working on a book right now, with your radio assets and your television, is really the way that you get your voice and your point of view out. Mm-hmm. So while the time slot is desirable, the most important thing to me is really to develop the cohesive battery of all of the assets that is necessary in the 21st century in order to pierce the veil.
We'll call that the Glenn Beck model.
Yeah, Beck, Martha. I mean, and he's done a fantastic job of it. Yeah. And his narrative is now that model. Other narratives that I think are, in my opinion, more solution-driven and more. Glenn Beck thinks, as far as I can tell, that you're waiting for the apocalypse, and then after the apocalypse, those who signed on are going to go to heaven. I actually believe that we can create work and solve the problems that make people feel apocalyptic, and heaven will be here on earth insofar as we have pierced through the energy problem, healthcare problem. I mean, these problems are all imminently solvable, and I don't know that we need to look at them in a way that makes us believe the apocalypse is nigh, as much as I think there's massive opportunities both for work and problem solving that can push us into an incredible period of time, and not just in this country, but in the world.
All right. We want to talk in our next segment a little bit more about that, using social media, using the web to get your message across. Yep. We're here with Dylan Ratigan. We'll be back with part 3 after this.